Okay, so I'm going to show you how to use Purdue's OWL, which is an online writing lab where MLA formatting style guidelines are provided for free. I'm going to teach you how to use that and apply it to whatever sources you find so that you can render them in the proper citation format. So we're going to start with a quick search through the library Summon, which is their search engine here. Works a lot like Google. I'm going to type in gender and Katniss. In the case of Katniss and Ender, I feel like I can use their names and it will help narrow my search pretty quickly. So lots of different sources that come up, books, journal articles. You're going to see here that I get dissertations, book reviews, ebooks, and so on. So that's the thing about Summon, is that it will bring up anything and everything that the library has. So I'm going to click on this first one here. This is and find out a little bit more about it just to see if it's applicable. It's a journal article. Reading through the abstract here, I see that this is a review. So that means it's not as rigorous as an academic article, but it might be useful depending on where it's published. Let's make sure it's published somewhere reliable. Young Journal, Taylor and Francis. So I could do a quick Google search. My instinct, just looking at the title here, is to say that this is probably a relatively reliable source, A, because the library has already reviewed it. It wouldn't be available here if it hadn't been reviewed as a reliable source. And the name Young tells me that it's interested in Jungian theory. So a psychoanalyst who responds to Freud's work. And then probably more helpful, if I did a quick Google search on Taylor and Francis, I would find out that this is a premier academic publisher. Publishing date looks good. It's relatively recent. Okay, so that's good. That's a relief. We can use it. If I skim through the information here in the abstract, and you can see this for yourself if you're interested, it's covering quite a lot of information. So we're looking at violence. We're looking at is Katniss a new kind of young adult protagonist? We're looking at gender, sexuality, historical resonances, right? So it's covering a lot of ground. So this, again, and two, just because it's a review, this could be a useful initial resource for me to start my research, and I could certainly bring it into the paper in probably the intro or very close to the beginning of the paper. But then for the real kind of in-depth analysis, I would want to be looking at and using more rigorous pieces that are more focused. Okay, so it looks good. So I'm gonna, for a starting piece, so I'm gonna click on the source. And the reason I'm clicking on the source is that Summons doesn't give me all of the citation information for any particular source. So, okay, yes, it's definitely a review. Okay, and here's proof of my point here. So the title is lengthier, actually, than Summons reveals. And, okay, this is a review not only of the book, the first book, but it's also a review of the film. So this will be useful in contextualizing this review, what it is, why it's interested in doing it, right? So if I end up using this information in the paper, that might be important to note in the paper when I bring this piece in. But more importantly here for our purposes, a lot of this new information that we don't get from the quick summons search will be important to the citation. So I'm not going through this process for you because I know you know how to do it, but if I were to type Purdue OWL, see how it's spelled here, into a Google search, it would give me Purdue's OWL, and I could actually underneath the first listing in Google. It would also give me kind of sub-pages available in Purdue's OWL, one of them being MLA formatting and style guide. So I would click on that and it would bring me right to this page. So, okay, I know that I am working with a periodical, right, which is just another way of saying journal and journal article. So I'm going to click on periodical. I already have the page up here. I know that I'm dealing with a review, so ideally what I'd like to find is citation formatting information for a review, and here we have it. So the way Purdue's OWL works is the first citation guideline, or, sorry, how should I say that? The first citation sample will be a kind of generic template for how that particular kind of source should be rendered in MLA citation formatting, and then it always gives you a couple of examples. So that's what's going on here. So I'm going to take all three of these, actually, and I am going to cut and paste them into a Word document so that I don't have to keep toggling back and forth between the Purdue page and my Word document. So that's what I've done here. And when I copied them, I don't know what kind of Microsoft Word you all have, but if it gives you this option, these different pasting options, you want to keep the source formatting. And the reason for that is that it will maintain that source formatting the best, of those three pasting options. So it's giving me even the indentations here. It's keeping for me the italicized pieces, right, and so on. So this is the truest representation of that citation format from the Purdue OWL. Okay, so I've typed in my information here from that original source. What I did actually was printed out the title page for the source so that I could just type from there to my computer screen. So I've got last name, first name of the first author listed, and then this is an MLA citation convention that is not noted in these examples, but if you have a secondary or tertiary writer, you list their names in order. So instead of last name, first name, anyone else, you're going to list first name, last name. So that's why you see it there. Then I've got the title of the review. Notice that the period is inside of the quotation mark. Then I've got Rev of The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins and The Hunger Games director Gary Ross. And again, this is mimicking that initial citation, see Rev period of, and then we get the title and then the author. And then I double checked on this. So director, it's not directed by, it's just dir period. So it's a little bit different from how you note an author, right? We've got the by there, we don't here, just dir period. Then I've got my title of the journal. The journal has a subtitle, Culture and Psyche, so thus I've listed them following a colon. That's how you designate a subtitle. So Young Journal is the major title for the journal, Culture and Psyche is the sub title for the journal. I know that from that title page. Then I have my date, fall 2012, colon, and then page numbers, period. And then I tell my reader whether this is a web piece or I'm looking at it in print. I've been looking at it on the web, so thus I list it here as web, period. So you want to double check all of this citation format. So the first thing that's easy to notice here is that my spacing is not good. So I need to change my screencast. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go up to my paragraph box. I'm going to double space this. There we go. And then I'm going to change the indentation. Everything hanging. Okay. Then I also noticed that titles need to be italicized. So now this is a journal. This is an article title, so it's enough to just have it in the quotation marks. See here, like they do. But for the title of the journal itself, oops, that should be italicized. And also, the Hunger Games as a book and the Hunger Games as a movie should be italicized. So one of the tricks of the trade that I learned as a English major is that if it is a piece that stands on its own, that you can pick up on its own at a store, say, like Hunger Games the book, Hunger Games the movie, or this journal, then it goes in italics. If it's a piece that's within a larger piece, like this, like the article or the review itself, then it goes in quotation marks. So that's what I've done. So this is a bit of a complicated one. It has several pieces to it, right, where I'm kind of having to combine these two examples in order to make this primary template work for my particular citation. But I think we've got it. So if you have any questions about citations, especially if you start messing around with interviews and online media, documentaries, that sort of thing, email me and I can walk you through the process. But also keep in mind, again, that Purdue's OWL is a great resource and has anything and everything you could possibly need in its style guide. Although, as I said, it's not entirely comprehensive, so it's pitched more for the undergrad. But see here, it's got electronic sources. It's even got classroom posters, sample papers, so an entire website, an image, emails, listservs, a tweet. Oh, and a couple of you had questions about citing from your Kindles. So if that's the case, if you're working from a Kindle for your primary source, say if you're reading Hunger Games off of a Kindle, I'm actually picking up citation formatting info from our Writing Center to make sure that we're consistent with the rest of the university, and I'll send that out to you as soon as I get it. Okay, thanks very much. Email me if you have questions.